I moved into my tiny house here in 2014, so I'm in my 6th year here and heading for 7. I am trying to produce as much of my own food as I can. I do have to carry water if I want something to come out of my faucet. I do have to go split firewood if I want my house to be warm, but I enjoy doing most of that. It's been a very fun ride over all of those years. My house is off-grid, as in the standard dictionary definition of not physically connected to any public utilities. My primary heat is with wood, my backup heat and my cooking and hot water heating is with propane, and I just have some 100-pound tanks. I only need to fill my propane tanks like every 1.5 to 2 years, so it's very, very minimal propane use. And then I do have a small amount of electricity provided by a little 400-watt solar panel bank that's sitting on the hill up there, and that's enough that I can charge up a laptop or camera batteries, or, you know, I could turn on lights. I have lights. I also have oil lamps and I have flashlights, so I have lots of options for lighting. I carry my own water. There's an internal tank in the corner of the kitchen, and I actually pick it up from a neighbor's well. They let me just come over and fill up my water jugs. I pour it in the tank, and then that also works really well because this climate is so cold, because my whole water system is internal. There's no hose or anything coming in or going out that could freeze up or burst or create problems in the winter. And then for a toilet, I have a composting toilet, which is absolutely awesome. So I did not build my tiny house myself. I did start looking for professional builders. They were awesome. So, you know, we worked out a design and ended up with something I really love. Basically designed this house around having space for all the things I wanted to keep. You know, photography of wildlife and such is something I really enjoy. So I made sure there was room for that. I love going hiking and backpacking, and that involves, you know, some gear, and I made sure I had room for that. I kept everything that I cared about. This is my tiny house. It's on wheels. She is 24 feet long, 8.5 feet from the outside tips of the eaves, and the height is just a couple inches shy of 13.5 feet. The inside of my walls is pine siding. Behind that there is spray urethane foam, and on the outside is cedar siding. On the top and the exterior there's a metal roof. All the snow just sheds right off the roof, and I never have to worry about that. The floor under me is made out of cork, and I really, really like the cork. It feels a little softer on your joints, and it's very warm. I'm kind of standing in the middle, about almost exactly 12 feet going that way and 12 feet going this way, so half of my house is the kitchen. So in my kitchen I have butcher block counters on both sides of the stove and the sink. I have these lovely cupboard doors. They actually have this cool soft close when you do that. I have a propane stove and oven, and just something to note, because I was not aware of this before moving in here, if you are planning to go off grid and have a limited amount of electricity, a lot of propane ovens specifically are made with what's called a glow bar ignition. A glow bar ignition takes a massive amount of electricity, approximately the same as running a microwave. They do make stoves that do the same ignition with just a spark off a little 9-volt battery, and that's something to look at. There are very few stoves like this. There are a lot with the glow bar, so just something to be aware of. Coming this way, I have a double sink with a built-in drain board. That part I really, really do like. Behind this door and my hanging clothing there, this is my little fridge and freezer. And then I've got more storage here, a few dishes, a lot of food, because I do like to preserve a lot of my own food. And then this big cupboard is my pantry. I have a lot of spices here on the door, and this pantry is actually fairly deep. This door goes to the very small bathroom. It is 25 inches side to side here. Here you can see my little composting toilet. It's a Nature's Head. I've been very happy with that. I have a shower. Looking at this half of the house, I've got the living room with my little couch here. There is storage under both sides of the couch, and I actually have a little extra board that sits right on this edge here, and this back cushion happens to fit right there, which makes it into a little guest bed if I have somebody over. Then here is obviously the front door. Front door goes out to my little porch. This is kind of my mudroom area, living in a cold climate. You do tend to have lots of layers of wool shirts and jackets and scarves and shoes and boots. Kind of the openness of it, if you are out in the snow or rain or something, everything just hanging here is able to easily evaporate and dry. This is a pretty popular kind of table with a lot of people in small spaces. But it's got these two wings that fold out like this. Pretty conveniently sits me to do any work I do, or 2 or 3 friends for dinner. This right here does look like wood, but these are actually tiles. So this is what I've used as my hearth. It works great because if a coal or anything should roll out, it's non-flammable. And then I have this steel backing, which has supports to keep it standing up an inch off the ground and out an inch from the wall, so there is airspace behind it, and that's worked just really well. So that's kind of my protection set up in that corner for the wood stove. This is a design that I've been really happy with, that I haven't seen a lot of other people do. This kind of partial wall to the sleeping loft has been wonderful. I did it originally mostly for having kind of more storage space, but it also gives the loft a lot of privacy, and because I happen to heat with a wood stove and it can make things very nice and cozy warm, and heat rises, and I don't love sleeping in a really hot room, it blocks a lot of the heat and keeps it down in the main room. Some can circulate up there, but it doesn't get excessively hot like a wide open loft would. So here I've got my sleeping loft. My bed is right on the floor. This is like a 4-inch mattress. Obviously I have plenty of room here to sit up and not hit my head. Even the whole way over to the side, I can sit almost clear up to the far walls without hitting my head. Got lots of 3 windows, so there's lots of daylight. And this has mostly been, I do have to flip the mattress kind of up to fully open these doors, but that's workable. These hold things that I don't use all the time, like my heaviest winter layers when it's actually summer, and then a lot of backpacking gear that I only pull out when I'm actually, going on a longer backpacking trip. So this is kind of my backup storage loft. I don't have a ladder or anything specifically to get to it. I simply step on the couch when I want to reach something up here. This little cabinet is usually extra food storage for canned goods and stuff, which give me a decent amount of extra storage. I ended up living here actually kind of as an accident. I'd been living in the general area for quite a while, sharing a rental with a roommate, and that home was sold by its owners, and so we were looking for somewhere new to live, and at the time just could not find anything that was affordable. And in the process of looking at options for van life, I ran into somebody with a tiny house on wheels and describing that, and thought that would make a lot more sense in a really cold and snowy climate, to have a small home that's insulated and easy to heat, yet still be something that was mobile and give me some of that flexibility. There's not a whole lot of things I would change. There was a handful, and most of them have been changed at this point. I did not have a wood stove as my heating source when I first moved in. There's a built-in heater kind of under the stairs here that runs on propane and requires electricity to run the fan and such. That's still an option, but there's millions of acres of beetle kill pine trees around here, so access to firewood, as long as I'm willing to do the work to go collect it, is super easy, just given where I live. Living in a tiny house with a dog has been wonderful, but if I was redesigning this, I would probably make the stairs a little bigger and a little less like a ladder, because he can almost go up them, but he can't really come down them. It's just a very awkward position. So I just lift him up and then lift him down, and it's not a big deal. Other than that, I'm really happy with the design in here. Almost everything has worked out exceedingly well for everything that I wanted and do and that goes on in my life. So it's been awesome. What I've done for work in the past, it's been a kind of crazy variety of things. Before moving into here, I was waiting tables. As far as jobs I do now, again, it's a wide variety, and a lot of it varies with the time of year, because in the winter I shovel snow for quite a few homes. I do some house cleaning for a private home or two. In the summer, I help an elderly lady with her gardening stuff. I do not own the land I am parked on. It is part of a much larger ranch. We're kind of doing a trade for labor in exchange for parking. So it might be making hay, it might be cleaning up down trees, it might be shoveling snow. And again, I really like that. I like living with the kind of seasonality of the natural world, and it's been a wonderful situation for me, and so far the landowners seem happy with it as well. I do have a fairly large garden here. I live in a zone 3 area, if you're familiar with gardening. Here it is cold all year round. We usually have snow on the ground for at least 8 months of the year, so that somewhat limits the things I can grow. I can't grow squashes, tomatoes, pumpkins, sweet corn, but there are a lot of things I can grow. Kale, chard, cabbages, broccolis, cauliflowers, onions, garlic, carrots, beets, potatoes, but I am trying to produce as much of my own food as I can. I'd say I do grow 100% of the vegetables I eat for the 4 warmest months of the year, and then I preserve as much of that as I can, doing things like canning, fermenting, pickling, dehydrating. And then a neighbor and I also work together to harvest 2 elk every year. They're massive amounts of elk herds in this area. That provides a good bit of the meat used in both of our households over the entire year, as well as a good bit of my dog's diet. He eats all the parts humans wouldn't want to eat. And then I also like to forage for wild things, wild greens, wild berries later in the fall, mushrooms throughout the summer, all that kind of thing. So I do try to provide as significant a proportion of my food as I can through the gardening, and then also the hunting and foraging aspects of food providing. But it is not 100%, and I do still go to the grocery store. So the first winter when I didn't have the wood stove, I did have serious condensation issues. It was one of the main motivators for adding this, that I had water not just condensed on the windows, but running off the windows despite mopping it up multiple times a day. But since installing the wood stove, that has completely eliminated the moisture and condensation problem. I have now had 5 more years with no issues at all. Daily life now, what are the biggest challenges? There's very, very few. There are times when something's inconvenient, like, oh my goodness, the urine bottle in the toilet needs emptied and it's really cold. I don't feel like walking outside right this second. But the longer I've lived here, the more of a routine I've got to kind of know when something's about to get empty or about to get full, and I can kind of feel like, oh, the weather's nice today, let's do it today. Most of that stuff even has smoothed out, and in day-to-day life, I would say at this point, I don't see any big challenges with living here. I really like just having a smaller space all to myself. Financial freedom, that's a big one. My house cost me more than a lot of people, especially people who build their own. You can definitely do it for a lot less. I did work a lot of jobs for the first few years to be able to pay for that, but now I have no ongoing bills. I have no ongoing rent, I have no ongoing utilities, and so all of that means my entire amount of cash expenditure for living expenses is relatively low, which gives me time. I like being able to get up without an alarm clock when I feel fully rested. I like being able to go for walks or snowshoes in the woods with my dog. I like taking the time to putter around in my garden and grow good food. I like taking the time to sit and observe wildlife. I love sitting down and reading a book. So the freedom to not have to spend a significant portion of my time earning income gives me the freedom to spend more of that time on doing other things that I care about more.
Be sure to subscribe to Exploring Alternatives and check out our playlists for more stories like this. You can also follow Ariel at the Fineth YouTube channel and blog. Thanks for watching.